So it's Maria?
No, it's Maria with a J because of Lithuanian heritage. We can't do normal letters. And like everybody pronounces it like Marija, which is not exactly true. My name is Maria. And
Yeah.
this is a great introduction of the interview. My name is Maria Carol. I'm CEO of Swapzone. And today
All right.
we're joined by Reuben, who is going to talk about Zcoin and about everything
Yay.
that he finds relevant in the cryptocurrency space. And it will be uploaded as our cryptocurrency interview series, one of the episodes. And so we probably should start with like a little bit of introduction. Like you can talk a little bit about yourself, what you do, and like how did you get into the cryptocurrency?
Sure. So my name is Reuben. I'm the project steward of Zcoin, and basically what that means is that I look after the project until it's decentralized enough, then you don't need me anymore. Zcoin was founded in 2016. We are a privacy coin, and basically what we allow people to do is to take their coins, destroy them or like burn them, and then at any time in the future to redeem them for brand new ones with no previous transaction history. We do this without any trusted setup. We do this without any fancy moon math, and I'm really excited to be here. So yeah.
Is Zcoin like something that this privacy tag and like privacy interest correlate with your personal values on some level? Like why did you choose to work there? Like not exactly
Sure.
work, but kind of be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, like, before this, I was actually a lawyer for 10 years. And then I also started the VPN company in 2007. So that was way back, and it actually did quite well. And one of the things that actually happened was that, VPNs back then in 2007 was like, oh, you must be doing something illegal. That's why you need the higher internet traffic. Nowadays, it's so accepted, right? Everyone's like, yeah, I'll use a VPN. It's just like a antivirus for your internet. You know what I'm saying, right? And
Yeah.
I remember even now, it's so difficult to get payment processors to accept payments for our VPN. They're saying like we are a high risk business. I'm like, how so? We've been around for more than 10 years and why are we considered high risk? And that's actually how I got into cryptocurrency. Was people were saying like, hey, you are a privacy service, why don't you accept cryptocurrencies? And this was back in like maybe 2013 or something like that. And that's how I got into the cryptocurrency, went down the rabbit hole. Did
Oh,
some
that's
stuff
a
in
pretty
Dash,
good
did
start.
some
That's
stuff
like
in Narrow.
that's like a very logical
Yeah,
transition, kind of like to
and I guess
privacy.
correct. Yeah, it really makes sense because especially now, that I'm kind of like more aware of what's happening with like surveillance, and like in Malaysia, our internet was censored for a very good part of our time. Like PayPal froze my account, my funds, even though we weren't doing anything illegitimate, and then they defreezed it. To checkout also froze our account, and that was like kind of like the light bulb moment, like, dude, we need something better than this. You guys are charging me like crazy amount of fees, like 3.4% and $2 US dollars over a $10 payment. And I'm like, we need something better and we need privacy. So that's kind of how it all started. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But like, do you think that like cryptocurrency generally usage and cryptocurrency applications can really make like a big statement in the space and like can really help with like making privacy technology something like not creepy and criminal and like whatever, like VPN is kind of like now everybody uses VPN and nobody thinks that if you use VPN, you're doing something like super creepy. But in crypto, there's still a little bit of this like that's like for thugs and like some people don't understand it. And do you think it's a matter of time when it happens, like when people start just like accepting it differently, or do we need to do something about it, or is it just the world is going to progress? Like, how is this movement?
Well, we also have to remember that Bitcoin also started with this stigma, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like we used to think that, oh, Bitcoin's for drugs, Bitcoin's for Silk Road, Bitcoin's for all these things, and look at it now, right? It's kind of different. And I mean, Bitcoin. I mean, in the paper there was actually talk about what privacy, there's a brief paragraph on privacy, but they just weren't really good methods then to anonymize, and they thought pseudonymity was good enough. Now, as to your question as to like, are we going to see normalization of privacy? I think that's kind of still up in the air, but that doesn't mean we should stop fighting, right? Like the battle on privacy is not just on financial privacy, it's almost on every aspect of our lives. Like in the US, there's this lawful access to encryption act bill, which is basically planning to outlaw end-to-end encryption or require all Apple and all this Android, Google to insert backdoors into their phones to allow people to decrypt. And I mean, we've seen China, we know that there's no expectation of privacy there. Now, when it comes to financial privacy, of course, people would say, oh yeah, this is only for money laundering, it's only for terrorist activities. I mean, first of all, the reports don't show that less than 1% of like cryptocurrency transactions are used for illicit activity. I mean, there are many reports on this, and I think the idea that just because we have something like cash, it's going to enable all this criminal activity is a bit of a stretch. I mean, yes, definitely it would happen, but we also have to think about what money is about. And we have to think about the proportionality of what cryptocurrencies were supposed to be about, right? Because cryptocurrencies were supposed to be an alternative financial system, to be, a way that governments can't just keep on printing money and somehow we have to sit there and accept it, right? And the only reason why privacy coins have not been like at the fore is that there hasn't been any sort of serious cases where governments have tried to censor transactions on a very large scale, right? But I think this time it's a matter of time. Like, take a look, North Korea, Venezuela, several other countries are Iran. They're amassing their own Bitcoin reserves. They're mining Bitcoin. They are, saving Bitcoin, and these coins are gonna have like, blacklisted, right? And who knows, it may lead to seizure if it lands on any of the regulated exchanges. Once that starts happening, I think it's not to say that we approve of this dictator governments, but money should have no morals. Like, there's no, like, who decides what is good and what is bad? I think that's a really big question that we need to ask ourselves. And are we willing to say we're going to submit to our government and let them tell us what is good and bad, and give up all our privacy? Because everyone's moving to electronic cash now. They know everything about us. Now, look at it. Now, if I'm wanting to fight against a government that's authoritarian, but they can just cut me off from the financial system by just saying, look, there goes your money, because, we control it all. That's it. I think that's personally very scary. And that's what cryptocurrency was supposed to resolve, to have that balance between the state and the government. Yeah. The state and the civilian. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like generally the point of like decentralized system, that nobody can show up and say like, okay, your money doesn't actually belong to you. Like, sorry, that's it.
Yeah.
But also, like, how do you think Zcoin's mission fits in there? Like, what exactly are the like main things that you do to like make this happen? Like, what are the main targets, the main goals?
So I think, first of all, we want to make sure that our coins, there's no way to say like there's taint to them. And I mean, our privacy protocol is basically about creating fresh new coins with no previous transaction history. There's no taint to them, right? And we're moving towards with our new privacy protocol, Atlantis, which is coming in maybe 2 months or so. It basically, we're going to go with a privacy on by default model. That means all transactions are private by default, but there is a way to opt out to transparent transactions. That means, exchanges want to do their compliance, they want to have those fast transactions, they can keep their transparent transactions, and that's fine. They know your identity anyway. But for the regular user, for the regular wallets, all of it will be private on by default. Now, as to like what we're doing, this sort of like make ourselves like survive in this sort of environment is like, obviously right now Zcoin is funded by a block reward. We take a certain portion of the block reward to fund our development, and that's great for bootstrapping the project as it goes along. I mean, like it's hard to replicate what Bitcoin did, so we need to have like continuous funding to begin with. But eventually, having a centralized team that receives block rewards is a point of centralization, right? And it puts a lot of power in us, especially if it goes big. Like kind of like what happened with Zcash, right? Like they're very, very reliant on the ECC. Nothing wrong with that, but it means that we become very reliant on one or two parties, and they really have to play super nice with the governments and whatnot because they are a known entity. Eventually, what we want to do is to kind of give back the governance and voting to everybody. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to give identity, you don't have to give KYC, but you can vote and have it kind of self-funding. And we have a very interesting proposal that just came up today about the idea of destroying your Zcoins for a governance token that will be a single-use token that you use it to vote on something and it'll be gone. So that's kind of beautiful in the sense it's simple, but at the same time it's decentralized, and it also makes sure that your votes are actual skin in the game because you are destroying actual money. I think that's a really interesting thing, and that's probably something that we will revisit in 2021 on the second half. Right now, we're just focusing on getting the infrastructure out with our Lelantus. We want 51% attack protection with chain locks. We want instant transactions with the instant stand. And then, we have integration with DEXs, even with like integration with DeFi and all that sort of stuff to make ourselves very resilient. Because like once we integrated the DeFi, we can be swapped on Uniswap or Banco or whatever thing, and with liquidity pools, we don't even need centralized exchanges anymore. So we're doing all of this stuff to make ourselves such that governments can't ban us. It'll be more about regulating around us. And we're not against regulation. We're just against outright bans. I think that's how we're approaching things. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, you started talking about Atlantis and the types of transactions that will be there for Zcoin. So there will be transparent, there will be private, and this is like something similar that you already mentioned. Zcash, they already have something like this. So they have T transactions, T addresses, and Z addresses. Do you think that with Zcoin, like Z addresses in Zcash, they require particular surroundings, so they require like those special wallet, they require, especially from like all the work at Guarda that I did, like we know a lot about that, because like needs to be very special facilitation. Like exchanges are of course like, okay, we need transparent transactions, so like it's a little bit of a hassle to facilitate all this like space to use private tech. And do you think that it's going to be something like this with Zcoin, or did you manage to find some kind of like a way to make it simpler for the services to get on board?
Definitely. So right now, obviously, I mean, like we don't believe the way that Zcash is approaching it is the right way. I mean, they call themselves a privacy coin, and I have great respect for what they do. The technology is really good, but the way they've approached it is like, too regulatory friendly until they're almost like scared to use their privacy. It almost seems like that. So that's why what I was saying is that all our official wallets will anonymize Zcoin by default. They doesn't even need, it's like, it will just do it. And it doesn't, even with our first version of Lelantus, there doesn't even need to be a separate addressing system, because you just burn the coins. It's in this kind of you only need to present a zero knowledge proof that you did burn it, and you can redeem it to any transparent address. And that money is completely taint free. It's just like brand new coins, right? So you don't even need to build infrastructure around that. of course, if you want to actually do the burning of coins, there is certain stuff that you need to build for it. And right now, we're trying to build an SDK to make it really easy to integrate that, because we kind of did it with Edge Wallet. And we didn't build an SDK, but we kind of like fiddled with their code to make it fit into us, and then we realized we should have done an SDK so that everyone can use this. So I think once we built Lelantus out and that deployed, that's actually the next order of business, is to build a Lelantus SDK so that it's really easy for wallets like Garda or any other wallet to just integrate our functions, and that's all abstracted in that layer with you guys not having to do too much work on that. That's our goal anyway. And that's why we believe that, we're all for privacy on by default, but we are realizing that, exchanges may be resistant and, they want the fast transactions. They want to be able to send out like hundreds of transactions at one go. It makes sense for them to have the transparent transactions. So let them keep doing that, because I don't think there's any expectation of privacy on the centralized exchange. Let them continue to do that. But then on the user side, all your funds will be anonymized. And as long as a sufficient number of transactions are like being anonymized, we're going to see a lot more usage of our privacy features. And I think it'll be a lot better than 1% or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, do you find it important as like a project steward? Of course, you were talking a lot about like the benefits of like privacy technologies and cryptocurrency as such. Do you think it's also important to like explain everybody that those are like not just like words, but like, oh my God, we're being like watched by government or like by whoever, but there is actually an idea about it, and there is actually some kind of like a very solid stance. So like, it's kind of like community education, community work, a big part of like all this project as well.
So what was your question? I didn't quite catch it. The line kind of cut off a little bit.
Sorry about it. So like mainly I was asking about the community side, because obviously like the decentralized space is something where everybody is kind of a participant. And do you work with like your community on kind of describing and making like everybody more educated about like privacy features and like what privacy is, why is it important, and all stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, of course we have videos on that, but I think one of the things that we right now, I mean, in its current state, obviously there's a lot of central control with us, because we are the developer team that's getting the block reward. But I think we also, even though that's the case, I think we also realize that we can't just do anything that we want, because we'll lose the support of the community as well. And obviously, I think, you may be a total, like technologically, you may be a totally crap coin, but as long as your community, you have value, because the currency only has value if the community recognizes it, right? I mean, I look at Dogecoin, it's total fun. There's no like real development then, but it has real value because people believe in it, people like it, right? And I think one of the things that we've been trying to do is to, we have monthly community meetings. We make sure that we are available all the time to answer questions. We have forums where we discuss things. But eventually, I mean, this is only like, I would say it's only like for example, like the removal of the founders reward, the funding of the continued 4 years of our development funding. That was all done through like a 1 year long consultation process on the forums, on the chats, through various community meetings. So definitely they have their say. But I think eventually we should even move forward that we are not even in the picture anymore. We just become a contractor that applies to a decentralized organization. What do you think of our proposal? Do you want to continue funding us for the next 2-3 months or so? And then we apply, and then people vote, and that's how we get funds. And that's great, because that means even if people wipe us out, they say like, oh yeah, Reuben, Malaysia now, you can't work on privacy technologies. On Russia, you can't, there's a bill to say that you can't work on cryptocurrencies maybe. Then there's the funds there, but other teams can step in and make proposals to continue development. So I think that's really important. Yeah.
So do you think that this like community governance and kind of like working with the decentralized, fully like decentralized space is something that like Zcoin is moving towards gradually?
Definitely, I think this is a very top priority for us next year. And this year, I think it's more like let's lay the privacy foundations. But next year, I think it's all about giving up control of our coin back to the community, and making sure that by giving back control of the community, we're going to see a lot more resilience in Zcoin. I think we're also going to see a lot more engagement, because right now, if you take a look at most of the other projects with a centralized team, it's the community asking, when listing, when you do this, when you do that, what's next, what's next, what's next. They become so reliant on the dev team. But if you just give it back to the community, they're going to do more amazing things, and people are going to be like more incentivized to do stuff. And this is kind of like an in-between of like, let's have like totally based on donations model, which is very, very hard to have a sustainable mode of development. And for us, we have the funding, but anyone can apply, anyone can vote. And we feel that that's something that's really important for the long-term growth of our community, and also resilience of Zcoin in the long run, especially as a privacy coin. Yeah.
What do you think will be like the generally kind of vector where the cryptocurrency space, like blockchain development, will be going in the next like couple of years? So like what's going to be important, what's going to be like major kind of milestones? Because I've been talking about it with like lots of people invited for this interview series. They all have pretty similar perspectives, to be honest. So I want to hear yours as well to compare with like all the other ones, because people believe in DeFi a lot and like decentralized governance. Like, are you going into this group too?
I think the next few years will kind of be almost like a make and break for cryptocurrencies, right? I mean, we are seeing the rise of stuff like Libra, stuff like CBDCs, like, you know, like China coming out with DCEP. There's even talk in the US of the digital dollar. These are like, I would say like cryptocurrencies, not necessarily using blockchain technologies, that are the very opposite of what cryptocurrencies were supposed to be, right? But they have the benefit of, they have the real benefit of like governments being the same, like, you have to accept this, right? That's like massive adoption on the scale. And I think in the next few years, we'll be seeing like, do people really like, you know, believe in cryptocurrency as an alternative financial system? Or is this just like moon boy, let's speculate sort of stuff, right? And I think there's no clear answer. I think it's going to be a bit of both. And of course, like, you know, the DeFi stuff seems to be like really hot. And I do think there's definitely some really interesting stuff there. Like, you know, the move towards DEXs, like Uniswap and like bank, they really, like, I was mind blown. I was like, wow, this is really amazing, especially for a privacy coin that's worried about centralized coin exchanges delisting us. I was like, this is the way that cryptocurrency can be done such that it cannot be stopped. And then governments have to regulate around us. And I would hope to see it going down that path. But at the same time, there are very, very scary laws coming about. There are, you know, like in Russia, they're saying like, don't work on cryptocurrencies. And like, you know, in the US, they're trying to ban encryption, all this sort of things. I wouldn't pretend to know who's going to win, but I feel that it's important for us to try, you know, to present a strong alternative. And, you know, like, I feel that this time when the Fed is just like printing money like nobody's business, and they're even proud about it, they're like saying we're the only country that can do it because there's no other reserve currency, right? And, you know, that's why like you're seeing gold and silver rise up and stuff like that. But now there's cryptocurrencies. You know, I do feel that this would be kind of like the make or break moment to say, are we going to be forever in this like fiat government controlled money, or are alternative forms of money going to come out and rise up? And I do feel that cryptocurrencies are they're not going to completely replace fiat, but I think it's going to be a much bigger like reality for people in the very near future, in the next 2 or 3 years or so. Yeah.
Do you believe in cryptocurrencies more as like in a perspective of like, I don't know, several years or like, I don't know, a decade, as more of just kind of alternative payment method, or kind of like reserve currency, or like what is the perspective of what crypto is going to be exactly?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, I think it was like a couple of years ago, they were all talking about it's not about cryptocurrency, it's about blockchain. I'm like, you know, and now we're going back to it's about cryptocurrency, not about blockchain, right? And I think if you look at it like very honestly, there aren't really many enterprise use cases for blockchain, you know, because it's like most companies, they create their blockchain, like you're in charge of your own company anyway, like you can do whatever you want. You can have a read-only database. Why do you need blockchain, right? Or like there's no real need for it. But, you know, obviously everyone wants to jump on the blockchain hype and do things like supply chain management and or copy everything's on the blockchain, or like, you know, dentist stuff on the blockchain, like Coin. You know what I mean? There's all sorts of stuff on the blockchain, but I feel that the only real killer app, and many people would agree with me, is that it's the transfer of value. And I think that's what blockchain really solves. And if you say decentralized finance and all that sort of thing, I think those are really revolutionary stuff that we shouldn't be trying to look like, oh my God, you know, what's the next big thing? I do think that we have to get payments right first. And we are just kind of getting there, and we're not quite there yet. And once we get there, then we can start talking about, okay, let's talk about other cool stuff. But right now, I think the killer app right now is still cryptocurrency for payments or store of value or whatever. It's about transfer of value. So that's my personal point of view. Yeah.
Do you think it's more important in this like kind of recognition of cryptocurrency as a transfer of value, which is obviously like it is a killer feature? Like, is it more important to have kind of like a higher, for example, governmental recognition that we already talked about, that like, I don't know, governments just show up and says like, okay, we don't ban crypto is great, let's do something with it, like make regulations, everything's amazing? Or it's more kind of the movement of the community and the movement of people like who are interested in cryptocurrency and who are bringing it outside to the government, not the other way around?
I think with most things in life, it's going to be both, right? Like, I feel that once something has gotten sufficient interest from the community, like Bitcoin is pretty grassroots as far as I can tell, and it kind of grew until, oh shit, you know, we need to regulate around it, you know. But if it was like small and governments like, you know, pay attention to it, they might have just like banned it outright, you know. I mean, I don't think that's wrong to say like engage regulators and stuff like that, but at the same time, we cannot be just like ask the regulator, hey, I want to create Bitcoin, what do you think? Obviously they're just going to be like, no. Why do you want to create new money? It has to be kind of like, let's create this thing, let's get sufficient community support so that it's like, wow, we are a serious player and we have negotiating power. And then we can engage regulators and say, okay, how do we deal with it? How do we fit Bitcoin into, or cryptocurrencies into the legal frameworks? And the law is catching up to do that. I think that's the right way, rather than, because regulators are there. We have to remember, regulators are not incentivized to accept innovation. They want to make their life easy. They're like, let's follow the law, stick within the law. I don't want to make new laws. Right? And it's more of like, oh crap, this new thing come up, now we have to make laws for it. Rather, if you ask them first, they're just going to say, no, you can't do it. No, you know, I mean,
that makes sense, because like all this system is kind of like opposed to innovation as such. Like, it's so heritage and so like just old, that when you bring something new to that, they're like,
I guess I think a similar analogy. I mean, I wouldn't agree that I totally agree with their approach, but like stuff like Uber or Airbnb, right? Like if they just went to the governments and said that I'm going to do this, it was never going to take off, right? But then they scaled so hard that it became so big that governments had to like, oh gosh, okay, I need to talk to you guys. Let's figure out how to fit you into the framework, right? I think that's a pretty good example of how like disruptive technologies work, because law will always be playing catch up, and it should, rather than ban everything by default. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's true. Like we'll be wrapping up here with a little bit of like probably advice, even though like some people don't like giving advices, but this is kind of like a general one for all the people who are just like going to the cryptocurrency space and who are just getting interested for whatever reason. What do you think is relevant for them to know, and what do you think it's good for them to know? Like what are the points to look for?
I think one of the things is that, especially now that I feel personally that we're entering into a new bull market, and sometimes it's also very it's very tempting when everything is going up to just blindly like, oh well, people are talking about it, let's invest into it, and I don't know much about it, and let's just make huge gains. And that's fine if you know what you're doing, but I feel that rather than I see so many people coming into our channel about Zcoin. Is this going to go up? Is this going to like moon? Is this? And if in the more less responsible communities, you have this like 100 other people, yeah, buy it, go to the moon, it's going to go crazy and whatnot, and people then base their decisions off something like that. I think it is more important. Of course, it's so difficult to grasp the entire space. Is that if you don't know about anything, okay, yeah, invest in Bitcoin, invest in Ethereum, at least like you kind of know that what it is. It's not going to go anywhere. But if you're going to invest in any other thing, I would say that take the time to really sit down, ask hard questions. And if everyone's just like moon boy, or shutting down your questions with, let's talk about the price, that to me is a real sign. You have to be able to ask the hard questions, and you see how they respond. If they can answer the hard questions and be open about it, I think that's a good sign. And then, you may have your next moonshot, but I think that shouldn't be the only thing, right? Like, I think it's really important to be aware that community chats, Reddit, 4chan are not the right place or TikTok, are not the right place for financial advice, as tempting as it is.
Yeah, this is a great advice. Like, kids, don't get your financial advice from TikTok. This is like very, very relevant. Thank you very much for it. Like, many people don't know it, so like it's good to say. Okay, thank you very much. Like, that would be the time for us today, and we were joined by Reuben from Zcoin, and it's a pleasure having you here, and great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Maria, and looking forward to more users using Swapzone.
Thank you.